I'm honored to be here to speak on behalf of the millions of people in China that are quitting the Communist Party, standing up to the Communist Party in the face of persecution, death, for standing up for their belief. I'm also honored to be here to speak on behalf of the Falun Gong practitioners who've been brutally persecuted for the past 14 years. Many people ask me, Damon, why, if you're an American, why do you care so much about what's going on in China? And China seems to be doing so much better. Their business is improving. The economy is better. Society is better. And I tell them, yes, on the surface, it looks like China is getting better. But under the surface, China has not improved one bit when it comes to human rights, when it comes to respecting people. I tell them, if you look at the way they treat their own people, you'll see how the true nature of their government is. When you're asked, how good is a government? I always say, look how they treat their own people. Well, there's no better example than that in China, is how they treat Falun Gong practitioners. Falun Gong practitioners are their own people. And when I began to research about China, a doctor friend of mine called me and said, Damon, do you know in China that they execute prisoners for their organs and sell them on the black market? I said, it's impossible. Not in this age, not in this time. It can't happen. So I began to do my own research. I started talking to doctors. I started reading as much as I could about the topic. And what I found was absolutely chilling. China, after 1999, their transplant program began to explode. They become the second biggest transplant country in the world behind the United States. And they did that over just a short period of time, over just a few years. Something impossible for us in the West. It took America decades to be able to transplant people over 10,000 a year. But China was able to do it in a few years. I started asking transplant surgeons how. How is it possible? How can they do it? And they started telling me, Damon, when we were over there, we were finding out that they were taking prisoners and they were executing prisoners. And in fact, China's doctors, 2 transplant surgeons, came to the United States. They came in front of Congress and they told Congress, we are executing people for their organs. And America at the time didn't believe it. It wasn't until 2006 when some very brave researchers started to do their own investigation that the world started to finally wake up and realize, yes, it's true. China is absolutely taking their own prisoners, killing them, and selling their organs on the black market. We put so much pressure on them that China's own Vice Minister of Health had to admit, he had to come out in a transplant conference, one of the largest conferences in the world. He came out and said, yes, you're right. 90% of all organs that are transplanted in China are coming from executed prisoners. 90%. And then we ask, well, how many people are you transplanting? 10,000 people a year. And that's what they admit to. In their media, sometimes they say 20,000 a year. You imagine 20,000 people a year being killed in prison. And I tell people, this is not like America where these people are murderers, rapists on death row and they're sitting there. No, these people could be Falun Gong practitioners. These people could be people fighting for their freedom of belief, freedom of speech, just sitting there. And if the person's organ matches theirs, then they will be killed for their organs. It's something unthinkable in today's age. People said after the Nazis, no one would do something like this. But it's happening, and it's happening today. It's an atrocity. Some of the most famous transplant surgeons in the world have stepped forward to stop this. One of the most famous transplant surgeons in Israel stepped forward and recently wrote a major article in the newspaper calling for the end of this atrocity, killing their own people. And it's no incident, and it's no coincidence, that this all started after 1999, when hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners were rounded up and put in jail. Many of them not willing to give their names. Innocent people sitting in jail, doing nothing but trying to be better people. But they happened to be a very easy target. And they were able to take this group, they were able to take their organs, and they were able to sell them on the black market, and they made a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, one person could be worth $500,000. Imagine $500,000. Some of the hospitals on the internet started saying that their transplant section of their hospital was the most profitable section of their hospital. So what had happened? Transplant centers all across China started to open up. Within several years, 600 transplant centers around the country opened up. It was almost as if it happened overnight. It's unthinkable. You imagine if each one of them is only doing 100. You imagine how many organs that they're transplanting, how many people they're killing. And again, when I say how good is a government, you look at how they treat their own people. And this is what they're doing to their own people. It's an atrocity. It needs to stop. I'm honored to speak on behalf of the millions of people that are quitting the Communist Party in China. In America, we talk about fighting for freedom of belief. But when we stand up here today and speak, we have no threat of being put in jail. We have no threat of being persecuted. We have no threat of being killed for standing up for what we believe. But in the people in China, when they stand up for what they believe, they have the risk of being killed. It's something Americans can't comprehend. They are tremendously brave. And I have something to say to them, and I hope they're listening. I say to them, you are not alone. There are people around the world standing up for you. In countries all around the world, you are not alone, and this persecution will not go on forever. I promise you. Thank you.